Hello? Not testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Testing. Yep.
All right. Sorry about that technical difficulties. We didn't have a show here last week, so we're kind of a little bit rusty here.
Little rusty. Trying to get some heat back on these mics, man. That's all.
Yep. Yeah, especially after those who don't know, we had a frozen tundra here right for Christmas weekend here in St. Louis. Wind chill was like, what, negative 35 if I remember correctly?
Yeah, negative 35, negative 27, somewhere in there. You know, cold as hell. But,
yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here again on That's Football, as we do every Tuesday with the exception of last week, talking some football here on your Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Show is brought to you on the In the Zone Network here on the My City Music YouTube page, and then also sponsored by Cafe Piazza down at 1600 Arsenal Street here in St. Louis, as well as the World Bird Sanctuary, worldbirdsanctuary.org, where you can go and donate. So, got the bills paid, got the ads out the way for the good folks watching and listening to us at home.
Yeah.
I don't even have a word right now for all of the levels and layers of football news that we have to cover.
Yeah.
Just know it's a lot, ladies and gentlemen. And
it's not even stuff we'll just touch in a little bit. Like,
yeah,
one thing I'll touch what happened last week, because we would have laughed at this, because remember with the Rams, they were going to Green Bay.
Yep.
And there was a report they had to spend thousands of dollars on cold gear. Though I think that would have been expected if that was planned, if you knew the Green Bay months in advance. And you would think with a team that usually plays Seattle at the very last of every year, they would figure that would be obvious. And then, of course, they lost and also, unfortunately, are eliminated from the playoffs, and that would be the first Super Bowl champion since when to get eliminated the fall.
Well, ironically enough, I think since the Denver Broncos after that 2015 season, which they won the Super Bowl, which of course we'll spend some time talking about them here shortly. I guess just to jump right in, man, go ahead and start with last night's Monday Night Football game. Not a very eventful game, but some news coming out of it. Of course, the Chargers clinched their first playoff berth since 2018 last night with a Monday Night Football win, 20-3 over the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are in full-blown, vacation mode at this point, planning the family trips for the end of the season, getting the tickets purchased, making sure they don't get stranded on their flights, whether it be Southwest or otherwise. Sorry, Southwest. 20-3 win for the Chargers. Austin Eckler scored the game's only 2 touchdowns. And again, as I mentioned, Chargers clinching their first playoff berth since 2018. We'll finally get to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs, which is really the gift that we've all kind of wanted here. Didn't play exceptionally well last night, but still helped lead his team to a win. The Colts, on the other hand, cooked, done, hang them up. 4-10-1 as a record here on the season. They had their third starting quarterback of the year go last night, Nick Foles. And in true Colts quarterback fashion, he came out there, 3 interceptions in his first start of the season. Colts now dropped their 5th straight loss. The Fighting Jeff Saturdays are now going to probably be looking for another head coach here come this offseason. After that, kind of wild win that they got in his first game against the Las Vegas Raiders. So, probably not a lot of good days to look forward to here these last couple weeks for the Colts, but of course, if you're the Chargers, definitely like having your playoff berth locked up here in Week 16.
Yeah, and it was like good for just Saturday there for a moment, then it just came tumbling.
Yeah, it went downhill fast, man. It went downhill fast. Like I said, they had that win against the Raiders, had that close game against the Eagles, and ever since then, and not to mention they had that historic blown lead against the Vikings here a couple weeks ago as well. So not a whole lot going on there for the Colts. Chargers, of course, we'll bring back up here a little bit later in the show as well. Big story of the football weekend, and really, if you've been watching us here on YouTube, you listen to our audio, we've got a lot of good laughs and jokes off on the Denver Broncos this year. Those laughs and jokes are going to keep on coming, ladies and gentlemen, because they have now fired head coach Nathaniel Hackett just 15 games into his first season. as the Broncos head coach. Mind you, this is after they got destroyed by that same Rams team that we were just laughing at for being eliminated from playoff contention. They lost to the Rams in L.A. 51-14 on Christmas. Look, it was a weirdly kind of down day in sports overall for Christmas. Not even just with the NFL, but the NBA games weren't that great either. But I thought I got a screenshot sent to me with the score being 17-0 in the first quarter, Rams and Broncos, and I thought the app was broken. I thought this was okay. Maybe the Rams might have scored 7, not 17. ESPN's app can be a little tricky sometimes. Maybe they getting it updated, whatever. And then I scroll further to find out that the reason they are up 17-0 is because Russell Wilson threw 2 interceptions before he completed his first pass in that game.
and as if you've seen the previous shows, Hackett can't hack it.
Yeah. Cannot.
Because, see, this isn't surprising. It's only 1 year. Remember, this is not this current ownership's plan. That was the previous ownership. New ownership is going to change a lot of things. Of course, they're going to be stuck with that Russell Wilson contract because if they release him, they're going to be they're in cap hell either way.
Yeah, they're going to be in a really bad cap situation regardless, which is part of the reason why they also decided to just go ahead and trade Bradley Chubb earlier this year to the Dolphins because they knew they weren't really going to be able to re-sign him anyway. And they also wanted to make sure they got some type of draft compensation back, for the compensation that they lost out in trading for Russell Wilson in the first place. So we've talked about the Broncos being terrible pretty much all year. That offense has been stuck in neutral, to put it nicely, most of the season. And look, I think if you are the Broncos, and especially that new ownership, you're probably looking at this situation like, okay, hey, much easier for us to get rid of the head coach and get a new coach that we feel like we're going to have a little bit more confidence in. Not going to be that easy to find somebody to take Russell Wilson off of our hands. So let's go ahead, cut our ties now with Nathaniel Hackett, and then see what we can do as far as another head coach is concerned. Now, of course, you see some people throw out the Sean Payton rumor to Denver. Personally, I don't think that's something that Sean Payton is going to sign up for.
Yeah,
I really don't. I don't think so.
Yeah, I want to bring this because this tweet caught my attention after Hackett signed. These were the people that interviewed for that job. The Hackett got this over Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell,
who's now, if you're watching at home, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Vikings' current head coach and former Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell. So I imagine the Broncos would love to trade places with the Vikings right now at 12-3 instead of at 4-11.
And then Cowboys OC Kellen Moore, Cowboys DC Dan Quinn,
okay,
Lions DC Aaron Glenn, Patriots QB coach Luke Getsy, Patriots linebacker coach and former NFL player Gerard Mayo. Yep. Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, and then we'll see how he does with this thing. Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, but he seems to be on everyone's list but doesn't get hired.
Well, and to be honest, man, I think with Bieniemy, you might just see a Josh McDaniels situation, and what I mean by that is he's probably going to just stay in Kansas City long enough to either finally get a head coach offer somewhere else or just take over that job whenever Andy Reid decides to hang it up. Now, I thought Josh McDaniels was going to be the kind of coach in waiting for Bill Belichick, but of course, Bill Belichick had other plans, didn't have retirement on his mind just yet, so Josh McDaniels decided to move on. Now, obviously, that's not going very well for him, which we'll touch on a little bit later, too.
And we'll get to the Raiders soon, but it looks like Josh Jacobs is out of there.
Ooh, yeah.
if you saw that.
After that post-game interview, he wasn't very happy about the loss. So,
and I don't think I think he was still under the rookie contract. I don't think he's getting, what's the word, that extension or whether that fifth-year option's not being picked.
Well, so they decided before the season not to pick up his fifth-year option, so he was going to be a free agent regardless, but I think now it's just a matter of time before he finds a new home outside of Las Vegas. So Broncos got killed. Russell Wilson still looked bad. I got to give a small hand clap to Baker Mayfield, man. I got to give a small hand clap to Baker because I thought, a couple months ago we was doing this show, Baker probably going to be out of the league here in a second. Now.
No, there's someone else that might be out of the league.
Right. Might be the other quarterback
else will go
going
in
against.
a moment.
But yeah, Baker, man, look, he hasn't been, a Hall of Fame level quarterback or anything like that. But at the same time, he could be a lot worse than what Baker has played with the Rams so far. So I'm interested to see, at least for him, if he decides that he wants to stay in LA and kind of play the backup role if Stafford comes back, or if Stafford decides to retire. He of course mentioned on his wife's podcast that he's not looking to do that. But we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah,
but
have your wife have a podcast related to your sport and have you on there. This is
they got to find a loophole somewhere, man. So he says he's not going to retire. We'll see how that plays out over the course of the offseason. But it might benefit Baker to just go ahead, stay in a situation with Sean McVay and that LA roster where they're going to try to put some effort into winning. Obviously, that effort didn't turn into much for him this year, but this is also, the defending Super Bowl champs that we're talking about. So, might be a good situation for him to stay rather than trying to go somewhere else and be a starter. But at the same time, he's going to want his money. He's going to want to, try to prove to the folks outside of LA that he can do it in another city and in another jersey.
Yeah, and of course with them Baker on there, they could still take his fifth-year option because that hasn't been used yet. So that saves the Rams some money because as of right now, they're also in cap hell too, especially with the Aaron Donald contract.
Well, yeah. So I mean, a lot of their money is tied up into Stafford, Ramsey, Kupp, and Donald. They paid a lot for Allen Robinson too, who didn't do much for him this year. Bobby Wagner's deal is a little bit expensive, so
and then,
their money is tied up in a kind of small circle.
No
of players.
first round pick next year. No.
Yeah, so they got to be creative in how they keep this roster intact, and it might benefit them to see if Baker's willing to stick it out at least another year. And potentially be your bridge as a quarterback of the future, or I'm sorry, bridge to your quarterback of the future, or even potentially the guy that is able to lead you after Stafford leaves.
So. That or get some offensive line help.
Well, I think that they're going to have to do that regardless of who the quarterback is.
Yeah.
Because that offensive line or lack of offensive line help is probably why Stafford isn't playing right now. So we'll see, how the Rams do. But obviously that's a big win for them given how their season has gone. Also, big game from Cam Akers. I know he was on probably a lot of fantasy football benches this weekend. But 3 touchdowns after, all the things that have gone on with him, in and around that locker room this season. Definitely a big game and a big way to end the season.
Yeah, and also, speaking of fantasy, this is basically the final 2 weeks of fantasy. Some of them still have them next week, too, for some reason.
Yeah, ESPN has always done that where, their default setting is 2-week matchups and you play all the way through the end of the regular season. Folks like me who still use Yahoo Fantasy Football. This is championship week. Luckily, I'm still around in a couple leagues. But, yeah, it's kind of, nut crunching time, as they say, for the fantasy. Now, back to another Christmas Day game that we got some news out of here the last couple days. Packers and Dolphins, which it's a lot to unpack with this. So the Dolphins, we'll start there. Because you made an interesting point to me that I did not think about before today. They have not won a game, basically in a month?
All December.
So no wins the entire month of
They
December.
got this last weekend. Well, maybe not. I'm not too. No, I don't know if there's any Saturday. No, there's no NFL Saturday games.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah, so they're done because Sunday is January 1st. Happy New Year, 2023.
Yep. So you've got, they've gone the whole month of December with no wins. It comes out. It's today or late yesterday that Tua suffered another concussion in this game, which this is now his 3rd concussion in a matter of, one season, but really more like 7 or 8 weeks.
I would not be surprised if he does early retirement in a few years.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if we got to wait a few years. Like, this might be something that I would hope that he's not planning on playing again the rest of this season.
I know that analyst Emil Acho suggested like weeks ago to shut him down, but
because three concussions in life is potentially dangerous. 3 concussions in a matter of a few months is like, we need to make sure that you don't end your career, on the field, so to speak, right? So,
on an eerie fan
definitely
by
not
Dr.
an
Pepper.
ideal
Said you want a new
situation
coach,
there
right?
for Tua.
Behold,
Dolphins
the coaching
barely
killers.
holding on to that final
33,
playoff
drop.
spot in the AFC right now at 8-7. A team that we thought might even be able to sneak away with the AFC East a few weeks ago, and now Buffalo has already ran away with that AFC East title.
And just two of the teams are trying to get a wild card spot right now.
Yeah, and so they also have to fight off the Jets and Patriots, who are both at 7 and 8. Doing that with Tua, okay, I can understand it, but with Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson, whoever you're going to start at quarterback, it might be a wrap for Dolphins and their fans.
This game was very sad in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was bad.
It's
it was
sad.
bad.
And don't even get me started with that, like, the little soft roughing the passer penalty on Aaron Rodgers was basically like two-hand touch football there.
Well, and Aaron Rodgers has gotten the benefit of the doubt on a lot of those calls over the years, and I mean, you get to be 40 years old in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know, the last 2 weeks the NFL officials been, heck, there's been some defenders hugging wide receivers and not even getting called pass interference.
And it's always hit or miss with some of these calls, right? The NFL, they've had a lot of these missed calls or botched calls over the years. So it doesn't surprise me, but Packers, of course, able to fight it off and get a big win on the road. Now they also improved to 7 and 8, and ironically enough, are back in the playoff hunt somehow in the NFC. So, I don't typically do this, but just gonna put this out there. Whatever we can do to keep the Packers out the playoffs, I think is the most entertaining result for football fans across America.
Yeah,
whatever we can do to keep the Packers out the playoffs.
The bright side, they won't have the home field advantage of the glory of Lambeau, at least.
I mean, but it'll be just our luck that we look on that first playoff Saturday where they're going on the road to either Minnesota or San Francisco and are either getting their doors blown off or Aaron Rodgers is throwing some type of Hail Mary at the end of the fourth quarter to try to tie the game up or something. So that'll be just our luck. But Packers sneaking back in the playoff hunt after what has been a pretty down season for them compared to expectations.
The Lions are won that division quite handily. Bears are eliminated. They've been eliminated and plus the loss they had with the Bills, that was just embarrassing.
Yeah, they got a message sent on them at home there on Saturday. So I want to definitely get into the NFC North in a second, but before we go that far, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes.
They also played on Christmas Day. Overtime win against Arizona, 19-16.
Was your phone broken too when you saw the halftime score 6-6? Out of curiosity.
Well, no, I didn't think that my phone was broken then, but I did think that my phone was broken when I saw up until the third quarter that neither DeAndre Hopkins or Mike Evans had a catch. What is this? We have two of the best wide receivers football has ever seen. They combined for one catch for 3 quarters. What is going on here, man? So, luckily, I was not relying on either one of those guys for my fantasy playoffs. But know some people that were.
One of my opponents said and he suffered.
Yeah, didn't have to suffer those defeats. But the Bucs somehow they keep pulling these games out of just thin air, basically. They looked terrible on offense for 3 quarters. They were down 16-6 in this game. Somehow pull off yet another comeback victory. They are now still in the driver's seat in the NFC South, which all 4 of those teams now under 500.
This is basically NFC West 09.
Oh yeah. Taking it back one time.
Oh no, 10. No,
taking it back one time. So. They still in control. Brady is fighting tooth and nail right now to try to get them back in the playoffs. We also saw him come out and say that he has not yet thought about retirement.
Not this again.
Which, Tom, come on.
You're already losing your marriage already.
Look, your kids are having to play Madden to spend time with you. Just, look. Tom, I'm pleading with you, man. I'm not even a Brady fan in that way. But what else do you got to prove? You won 7 Super Bowls. countless Super Bowl MVPs.
Are you trying to give other people more of a chance as being in the Hall of Fame voting in the next 5 years or something? You already gave Ben Roethlisberger an automatic shot.
That's the thing too. Like, we know he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's nothing he has to prove right now, right? And he's still 46. They're like, Father Time, they say, is undefeated. At this point, Tom, if you just walk away, you might be the first one to get a win on Father Time, man. I'm just saying. Just putting that out here. You might be the one. And even right now, it's a little shaky because there are a lot of these passes that don't look great coming out of his hand.
And, we already know he's probably going to get an analyst job or something.
Well, he's already sitting on, hundreds of millions of dollars from Fox to go and be an analyst. Just go take the Fox job, man.
Gronk is already retired. He's not coming back to football.
Look, let's just do this. We have the Manning cast on ESPN, right? Can we get a Brady and Gronk cast on Fox?
That probably would.
It only makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have to be the ones traveling every week to, different games, nothing like that. Just 12 to 87, right, in the comforts of their own home, wherever they want to be, and they can do like an alternative broadcast for whatever games they want to choose throughout the year. It makes a lot of sense to me. Fox, look, if you want me to kind of give you consultation, we can do that, for little to no cost. Just saying. But Brady is fighting tooth and nail to get these Buccaneers in the playoffs, and as much as I hate to say it, still not somebody I want to see if I'm an NFC team in the playoffs.
Yeah, and another thing too. Speaking of being in that division, Panthers beat the Lions. I forgot. I was mistaken there. I thought they ran away. Oh, no. That's the Vikings. Why am I thinking the Lions? The Lions could make the playoffs.
Yeah, Lions are still in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, but the Panthers, though, they're beating the Lions 37-23. Wilkes, do you think Wilkes should get that interim tag off him already?
Yes. Give him the head coaching job. They were dead to rights before he took the job over. And now, if they win next week, they essentially are going to be the NFC South champs and make the playoffs, which, whether it is at 7-10 or 11-6, playoff berth is a playoff berth, especially when you took over the team at a time where you thought they were probably going to be tanking for like one of the top draft picks. He was able to get them turned around. Again, a big game. We still got to see them perform and take care of business next week. But if they were to win that game next week and he's able to lead them to a division championship after the start Matt Rule got them off to, why not? What's the worst that can result from that is you get a chance to fire him next year if he stinks?
Yeah, the only thing Wilkes is going to get if he once he gets injured, to get a raise and paid. That's it.
Well, yeah, get that man his money and just the respect of, hey, we understand that what you had to do was not an easy job, and I don't think there's anybody that can say he's underperformed. Like, they were already terrible. So, not to mention, they were terrible and traded away their best player in Christian McCaffrey, and they've won more games after trading him than they had won before him. So, I think you got to give Steve Wilkes that respect.
They have a lot of capital for the draft. They got a lot of cap space, I would think, especially after the trades.
Yeah, and, I mean, if we're being honest, like, just taking an honest, look at that Panthers team, you could argue that they only really need a quarterback. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver isn't, a great position for them, but they've got DJ Moore. We've seen some good things from Terrence Marshall this year. The running backs aren't great, but, I mean, they just ran for, 320 yards? I think I had it down here against the Lions. Yeah, so they outgained the Lions on Saturday, 320-45 on the ground. I mean, and that's without Christian McCaffrey. So, whatever they have going right now is working. Now, of course, the counter that is probably like, okay, you get a little bit more tape on or whatever. But if you can get them an upgrade at quarterback over guys like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, they might. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They can beat 7-10 or 8-9 again in the same division. I think you at least roll the dice for another year with that. Give Steve Wilkes the opportunity to lead this team through, full offseason, full regular season, and see if he has the chops for it. To this point, I think he's proven that he does have that. Now,
yeah, and then, like we said, with that division,
it's all over the place.
The Saints win. They have one of the low parts of the chance, but still a chance, and they eliminated Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, Cleveland. I want to get to y'all in just a second. 'Cause
Like, let me be clear, just the sake of the bad fans, not the good ones that I know a few of.
Oh yeah, but it was a lot of y'all talking, noise and kind of talking crazy to these women after the Deshaun Watson thing, and now he's been back for 3 or 4 games and looked terrible.
Not to mention, there were some fans that were very bombastic on saying we're going to win the division. Now the Ravens have clinched that division now.
Yeah, so you've got the Browns basically in kind of the worst situations of all, where not only, of course, they're not quite in like the Broncos level bad trade situations, but pretty close when you consider that they also gave up a lot of draft capital to get Deshaun Watson, paid him a lot of guaranteed money, even though they were able to defer a lot of that until next year to start. Not ideal situation for them at all as far as the Browns are concerned in that division. I'm real interested to see what they do and how they kind of play the rest of the season. Because, of course, you want to give Watson some opportunity to continue to kind of get his feel for the game back and things like that. But I would also kind of take a look at, like, hey, maybe we should just sit you the rest of the year. We've already let Jacoby Brissett play, a lot of these games anyway. The worst that can happen is we're going to miss the playoffs. We already know that. So hold him out, let him, kind of sit on ice for a little bit, go through, again, full off-season program, get his burns back under him, and try it again next year because there's nothing else to play for at this point.
Yeah, and the one game that, because the one division that's now directly in chaos here is the other South, the AFC South.
Yes, full chaos.
Yeah, because especially now, how do the Titans let the Texans beat them 19-14? You gave the Texans their second win of the season.
Yeah. Emphasis on second, meaning they only had one win.
They still have the first pick, but that's still their second win.
Hey, look, I will give the Texans this. From what I can tell and from what I've seen most of the year, the Texans, they fight pretty hard in these games. Now, they don't have the talent to stay in it most of the time, but, they played close games against the Cowboys, played close games against the Chiefs. They got the tie against what we thought at the time was a pretty good Colts team. Turned out that wasn't necessarily the case. But, they've been pretty close in a lot of these games. Now, the Titans, on the other hand, this Malik Willis experience has probably gone as worse or as bad as you possibly could have imagined if you're the Titans. And I hate to do this to a fellow black man, but it does not look like he's ready. He's not ready for game action just yet. Now, granted, I know they don't have much of a choice. They drafted him in the 3rd round. Ryan Tannehill is hurt. But anytime he's out there, you feel like the only thing that they can do is run. And not to mention, that's probably how you were game planning for the Titans anyway. But at least, there were a few occasions where Ryan Tannehill would kind of make you pay. They don't have the receivers anymore after trading A.J. Brown. And not to mention, Derrick Henry's also, it's some miles getting, on that engine, man. He's already, one of those running backs that are defying the odds a little bit because this is usually where it's completely downhill. I would hate to be them going into next year thinking that, okay, we got Derrick Henry, we can make this Malik Willis thing work, and then that be the year where it completely goes downhill for Derrick Henry, and then you're looking at like 2-15, 3-14 with no way up, basically.
Yeah, and of course now another shocker, and this is the one team we're going to be talking about here. We had Mike Mitchell here with the Jets, and Jets lose again, and he predicted this too on another show. I listened to him.
Yeah.
But strangely, Jaguars beating Jets 19-3. And the Jaguars, for how poor they are, they have a chance of winning the division because the South is so bad.
Well, and take that even a step further. Not only do they have a chance to win the division, they hold the tiebreaker right now against Tennessee. So, again, we use that phrase that the playoffs started today. Jacksonville would have the 4 seed in the AFC because they would be the AFC South champ.
And then they would they would probably face the Ravens. No.
Yeah, it'd be the Ravens right now since Cincinnati still has the 1-game lead on Baltimore, but Baltimore does have the tiebreaker with Cincinnati. So they've got another game to play against each other prior to the end of the season. They actually play in Week 18. But
that's still weird. It's the second year. It's still weird to say Week.
I have to catch myself every time. Like I want to say 17, but it's definitely not. So you got that matchup to look forward to in Week 18. So we'll see kind of how that all plays out as far as the AFC North goes. But as that is kind of related to, we were just talking about the Jaguars. I like the Jaguars, man. I like the fight. Trevor Lawrence has definitely looked a lot better as the season has gone on. And it's not like he's throwing to like stud, elite receivers. He's throwing to Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, who, kind of got ran out of New York last season. So I like the Jaguars, man. It would be fun to see them get that opportunity to make it to the playoffs with how young they are. And I think, if I'm the Ravens, I don't necessarily want to match up against Jacksonville. Hell, Jacksonville beat them earlier this regular season.
And the Ravens are still inconsistent, even though they have that winning record. That's what the bad.
Still inconsistent, and we've seen them blow
will it be
leads.
Lamar Jackson? Will it be Tyler Huntley?
Well, and that's the other thing.
Like Dobbins, he's getting back from that injury still, but it's like anytime there'll be another injury to one of these players, and they're done like that.
Well, and Dobbins didn't play much of the second half this week against the Falcons. Now, granted, they didn't need it. That Falcons game was pretty well in hand, early. But, if I'm the Ravens, that's not necessarily the matchup I'm looking forward to.
No.
Definitely would. If I'm, I would much rather try to find a way to win that third seed and, play one of these wild card teams like, Jets, Dolphins, Chargers clinched the 6th seed probably. So, maybe I would prefer the Jaguars over the Chargers having to go against Justin Herbert.
I'm going to talk about something with the Chargers because there was a game that was flexed this week, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep. So their game for this upcoming week 17.
If you guys don't know, this week is supposedly the battle for L.A.
Yeah. Chargers-Rams, Battle of L.A. It was initially the Sunday night game for this upcoming Week 17. Got flexed out for Ravens-Steelers, which, let's be honest, was the right choice, I think, because we already got Bengals and Bills on Monday Night Football.
And I think Sunday night, you said it was the Ravens. Yeah, it was the Ravens game that got flexed.
Yeah, Ravens.
Now, the thing that's going to be kind of funny, interesting about it, like the Chargers, they're in the playoffs. They don't really. Yeah. They will get first since 18. I'm trying to remember. 18, they were still in San Diego, or were they playing in Carson?
I think that might have been the first year after the.
Okay, they were in Carson.
Yeah, they were in Carson. Well, actually, no. Rams left in 2016.
Yeah.
So same year. So they had been in LA for a couple years. Then.
Okay, so yeah, this is going to we'll see how the offense goes. I know people were egging on the Charger quarterback for some goddamn reason.
Well, and to be honest, man, look, the Chargers, depending on the matchup, they can be a little bit of a sleeper.
I know, and I know people are upset with the Chargers because the last few years they have been underachieving so greatly.
Well, and I think, we talked about their ownership. One thing that I think you probably, if you're a Chargers fan or anybody that has followed them, could be a little bit upset about. They won the game, of course, last night, clinched the playoff berth. They gave the game ball to Dean Spanos, which, great gesture. Our owner, he's been, kind of trying to put this thing together. We finally got to the playoffs, yada, yada. But there's been some people with a little bit more direct impact that you can get that game ball to.
Yeah.
The Dean Spanos. So,
yeah, especially with all the Spanos family drama going on right now.
Well, and if we're being honest, they're only in L.A. because he was the one show in town in San Diego and couldn't get a stadium built. So is it like his good doing, or is that him not necessarily being the greatest owner? Because I would think it's the latter.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure about the ownership situation.
The thing that'll be interesting is like how many fans, and will it actually be packed with both fans for LA? Because because it's two fan bases in the city,
right?
And you're not going to have any fans coming over. You're not going to have all the red of sea of San Francisco in there. And also, too, SoFi will not have it because Chargers are a wild card team. So SoFi will not be using any capacity whatsoever during the playoffs.
Yeah, so, they wouldn't. The only way they would be able to host a playoff game is if at some point, I would assume they made it.
And they don't even have a home field event. We'll see if they have one this week, but.
Right. I'm interested to see how that split goes because you have a city that
I'm not even expecting it to be full, to be quite honest.
Well, I don't I don't expect it to be full either. I'm interested to see how that works because I don't think there are many Chargers fans, just in general. But
I would not be
also-
surprised this would be like a London or Germany game. You have people wearing different types of NFL jerseys to the game. That
You may just have some people that, we've seen all this winter weather around the U.S. You might just have some people hanging out in L.A. because they want to be in the warmth as opposed to in, these frozen temperatures, man. So
though for some reason it's going to be warm and rainy this weekend here. Mild is.
yeah. But look, I'm not going to lie. 50 degrees feels, like 75.
Oh, trust me,
when you're
that's a
talking about
vacation compared to what we
27.
went through last weekend.
Right. Right. So,
Especially people down in Alabama and Florida, dear Lord.
now, one
You
team
guys
we
might
kinda-
be saying that's terrible. To us, that's a Tuesday.
right. That's a normal day here in St. Louis. Don't
People don't know that's
trip off that.
a Street Fighter movie type reference there. So, yeah. And what other game I saw?
Well, one team I wanted to go back to really quickly.
Oh, yeah. Well,
the Lions.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on them real quick because we talked about that, being hot going into that Panthers game. Is it crazy to think that missing out on the playoffs might be better for them than making the playoffs? Because that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. And the reason I say that is because as fun as it's been, to kind of see them win these games, and especially with the way they play, it's usually a lot of high-scoring games that they're in, right? Do we really think that they will win a playoff game? And if we don't think that they will, is there any sense in trying? Well, no, there is sense in trying to push for the playoffs, given how bad that franchise has been in its history. But you've already exceeded expectations this year.
And you got a first-round pick in the top 5 guaranteed, in the top 10
Or,
guaranteed.
I was going to say, yeah, even outside, whatever happens with the Rams, you're going to get a top 10 pick. Take the extra pick, load up on some more young talent, and go and make the playoffs next year when I would think it's probably going to be easier next year than it is this year.
And Detroit, a lot of free agents see how they're doing, and that's going to look attractive to them.
Yeah.
I would think. And then
Now, the opposite end of this argument, though, just keeping score at home, I believe, and we'll kind of run through this with the playoff scenarios and things before we preview Week 18. I'm pretty sure the Lions hold tiebreakers over like all of the other wild card teams that they're fighting for playoffs with. They beat the Giants. Pretty sure they beat the Commanders when Wentz was still starting for them. They've beaten the Seahawks. And who is the other team? Well, I guess they'll have another game against the Packers, which is also the final Week 18 of the season, where those two teams might be fighting over a final playoff spot, depending on what else happens in the NFC. So, I'm not putting dirt on the Lions just yet, but I could see why they might also want to go the opposite direction and just say, look, let's take these picks and go.
I find it more of a damn if you do or damn if you don't type sitting there with that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now I kind of want to get through with another division because now it's like you got multiple teams in this division, but still no clear division champ, depending what happens either this week or the following one, and that's the NFC East because the Cowboys came back and beat the Eagles, that still right now technically would be the division champions if it ended today, but they're only 2 games behind them, and if somehow the Eagles lose 2 and the Cowboys win out, would the Cowboys still have the?
So I think the Cowboys would now hold the tiebreaker. Don't quote me on it because it's a very slim chance here. But I would think because of the fact that we can't call the division for Philly right now, that would mean that Dallas has the tiebreaker in some way on them. Can I ask a question though about this Dallas game?
Yeah.
Isn't this basically the same kind of win that Philly got? I guess in that was week 5 or 6, where they were in Philly. The Eagles were at full strength, but the Cowboys had Cooper Rush starting. And Cowboys fans were kind of like, we still hung in the game. Mm-hmm. Cooper Rush we'll definitely be able to beat the Eagles. Now fast forward to this week, you got the backup quarterback for the Eagles in, and to be honest, That's probably a game the Eagles should have won.
Yeah.
And, again, Minshew didn't look great, but at the same time, he threw for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns on a Cowboys defense that was at full strength. I wouldn't be so quick to be confident in that win if I were the Cowboys. Now, granted, you want to have your bragging rights over your division rival. But to win by 6 in a game where you were down for the majority of it, this ain't really the time to be counting moral victories. You need to have taken advantage of Jalen Hurts not being in that game. And I don't think that they necessarily took advantage in the way that they probably should have to instill the kind of confidence that they're going to need to make a Super Bowl run.
Yeah. And it's because here's the thing, too. Like, one thing we'll preview about next. Because, see, this Thursday is the final Amazon Thursday night game.
Yeah.
And this upcoming Monday, January 2nd, that's the final Monday regular season.
Yeah, because
regular season
added in this Monday night playoff
there will
game.
be a Monday night playoff game, at least for the first week of the playoffs. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, though. This one is usually the most important one week coming up here for Week 17. Then Week 18, I'm going to be wondering how many teams are going to be sitting their players and putting their backups in here.
Well, and like you kind of mentioned, we'll kind of show it a little bit more in full as we go through the kind of Week 18 preview. But there's a lot of teams that have already kind of clinched playoff spots, at least. Maybe not divisions, but playoff spots in general. So that might either lead to a lot more teams than normal resting players, or you might have a lot of teams, a little bit more willing to kind of play for seeding as opposed to just kind of sit back and wait and see what happens. So Week 17 is probably going to be a little bit confusing with all the different playoff scenarios that are going to be in play. But I think we are in store potentially, at least, for a pretty strong end to this football season. It's been, a fun one all around so far. So definitely would want to see how some of these things turn out, man. And now, Cowboys, they get the win. Again, I kind of mentioned it being a little bit more of a moral victory for the Eagles in this one, same way that Dallas had in their first meeting. The Minnesota Vikings, somehow 12-3.
Mm-hmm.
They've won 11 of their 12 games by one score. Most people in and around the game of football have kind of looked at this as, okay, they're frauds. They are, there's only so long that they can keep winning these games. At what point, though, do we have to look at this and say, maybe we should just take the Vikings serious? Now, granted, some of these one-score games are against teams of lesser talent. Yeah, okay, fine. But at the end of the day, 12-3 is 12-3.
Yeah, even though they barely beat a Giants team with all their problems.
Well, and now, here's where we got to put a little bit of respect on the Giants, too, though.
Yep.
The Giants right now, again, if things stop today, the Giants are a playoff team. The roster isn't perfect.
Yeah, they're not eliminated right now, as I see. Double-checking the list here.
Yeah, like I believe, are
the whole
right
NFC East is still in the running.
Yeah, you might have that whole division make the playoffs.
Yeah, and the only ones in the South that got eliminated was the Falcons. So,
well, yeah, and the Falcons have been playing for next year for a while.
Oh yeah, Seattle's still in it. Dear Lord.
Yeah, you still got a lot to play for right now in the NFC, man. So,
and Raiders are still in it too. Dear Lord.
Yeah, and they are hanging on by
Steelers. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, all of AFC East is like
still in the mix, man.
And though right now, Buffalo would have the number 1 seed right now, right?
Yeah, so they have the tiebreaker over Kansas City since they won in Kansas City.
And then for the NFC, it would be Philly would have the number 1 seed, Dallas 2. Yep. That's about right. So
I mean, I just think at some point, man, the Vikings again. I could see a world where they lose, they go into the playoffs as the 2 seed and lose in that first weekend against whoever is the 7 seed. I can see a world where we're looking up and they're up 3 points with like 2 minutes to go in an NFC Championship game. There's a wide range of outcomes for Minnesota this year. But I think we do need to give a little bit more serious consideration to them potentially making a long playoff run as opposed to just thinking that this luck is going to run out at some point.
Yeah. Now, there's one thing I want to discuss a little bit outside the NFL games, a little bit of an audible, if you will, because this came out when we were last week and that was finally who was getting NFL Sunday ticket.
Yes, that is definitely something noteworthy to talk about because I have some questions about how this is going to go.
Okay, so for everyone that don't know, it was basically bet like I believe it was Amazon, Apple, and Google with YouTube.
Yep.
And Apple is out. And it looks like it's going to go to Google and put it on YouTube TV. Now, I never used YouTube TV before, so I don't know how the streaming works compared to on Hulu or the other streaming services like that.
Yeah.
So now, the one thing, because DirecTV, I believe it's about $200 something a year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think I looked at some prices. Now, I don't have DirecTV, so I don't have Sunday Ticket. I've been kind of doing my phone around with the
DirecTV
NFL
had
Plus
this deal since its inception, I think, back in since '94.
Yeah, it's been a while. They've had it for years, man. So
that I was 7. 7.
Look, it's been a while since they had to renegotiate those rights.
There was one report that there's a chance for the ticket on YouTube TV for being $300 a year.
So I wonder with the YouTube TV change because I don't subscribe to YouTube TV, but I have watched NBA games on YouTube TV before. Streaming quality is pretty good. I wonder from a functionality standpoint, and granted, I could probably trust this to somebody like Google a lot better than we can to DirecTV, but I wonder how the functionality is going to work for you to be able to bounce from game to game. How easy they make that. You know, are they going to allow you different Sunday ticket type packages? There's a lot of questions that we probably still going to have to answer.
If I were them, I would have a multi-screen feature. And that way, you click on a game and it'll be half of the screen or about 3/4 of it. Then you have those other games in like a little cube or something to put in.
Well, and I imagine they're probably going to do some type of wrinkle on like the Red Zone channel, right? Or putting 4 games in one screen, something like that. I guess the follow-up to that is how much does that then seem like it's worth it to the customer to pay for it?
Now,
because how is that now also going to be separated from your regular YouTube?
Now, here's a thing that was also kind of considered too that I saw that was being discussed in an article I read. Supposedly, there might be a cheaper option. And this is something I kind of suggested a few years ago on another show I did. They are actually kind of considering that you subscribe to, like NFL, but subscribe to a specific team.
Okay, for reference, NBA League Pass used to do something similar to this, right? Mm-hmm. Now, League Pass this year is a much more streamlined product where there's now just 2 rates where you have one that is a little bit of like, okay, you can kind of tune in to certain out-of-market games, whatever, and then you pay the other rate for all access to all games. I would imagine there's probably going to be some option like that, but League Pass used to also allow you to pay, let's say instead of paying $39.99 a month, you got to pay $7.99 a month. But for that one team that you subscribe to, you can watch all of their games while then having to add to your package to be able to get the other games. It seems like that would make sense for some NFL fans. I just would want to see how that works in terms of YouTube's function.
Not to mention, I do believe one big complaint of YouTube TV, there's like a big delay.
There is. So I did notice that. There is a big delay in, when you see something happen versus when it happens real time. Again, if you're trying to stream sports, that's definitely something you want to try to get corrected. Mm-hmm. But I think it's much easier to trust a tech company to do that than DirecTV, who, when is the last time you felt like DirecTV has updated anything with how they operate or, their user interface, anything like that?
So. Who the heck knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Satellite, like, I expect DirecTV and Dish not to be in existence in its current form and within a matter of a few years than a decade.
Well, and I wonder how many people now who've had DirecTV for so long are just gonna finally go ahead and get rid of DirecTV since they don't have to, or they can't use DirecTV to get Sunday Ticket.
That depends. Like, trust me, there's still some rural areas that still don't have broadband internet. We're still waiting for that, by the way. I know that's supposed to be some of the part of the government that's supposed to be fixing that here soon. But we know how fast the government can actually do some stuff here, especially if you're in the court system.
Right. So definitely can take their time with some of those things.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see here, of course, like, the one thing, because with the success, as far as I know, NFL Plus has been a success, and that's the only thing you do on mobile and tablets.
Right.
Especially if you don't have ESPN or, like, though for some reason I have Prime, but you actually view the Prime games here, functionality is a lot better on NFL Plus than it is on Prime Video, which I am shocked.
Well, and I think that was the NFL's way of basically not having to depend solely on people going out and subscribing to Amazon Prime. Because I imagine there are a lot of NFL fans who are likely men living in a household with a woman who has Amazon Prime. And they don't necessarily want to, try to deal with the whole back and forth on that. Or single men or women who are football fans that don't want to pay for Prime but still want to watch the game. So
one functionality is, like, sometimes, especially the ones who have iPhones, you're able to, like, okay, this is cool, I want to post a tweet about this, and you're able to minimize the screen and all that stuff. You can do that for NFL Plus. For Amazon, the feed stops.
Yeah, definitely stops. Definitely stops if you try to do anything outside of that initial screen.
Yeah, so that's...
Now, also, what we might have to think about for this Sunday Ticket deal as well, there is also the chance that Google decides to say, okay, hey, this initial go-round, we'll have some cheaper options for people to be able to get in on NFL Sunday Ticket.
And if I saw the deal from the article, they're getting like over $10 billion a year from this.
It's a massive... I think as high as $12 billion for the rights to these Sunday Ticket games.
And that's more than what they're getting from some of the broadcast networks now. That's going to be the interesting question, how broadcasting is going to happen, because we're still going to have live TV, but how it's going to be functionalized with all the streaming stuff that's happening here, especially since we're going to need all that broadband, so hurry up on that.
Well, and that was kind of the point I was getting to as well, where you may see it from Google where they are like, okay, hey, we'll throw customers a deal, but when those TV rights deals and things come open again in 5, 6, 7 years,
that's at the end of the decade. Oh,
yeah.
Lord.
So 2030 comes around and we've been giving customers a discount on these Sunday Ticket packages for this long. Okay, NFL, throw us some Thursday night games, or throw us some live Sunday games, kind of in a way mixing in what they already plan to do with the Sunday Ticket, with like what I would hope to be a better version of like Apple's kind of like baseball.
Don't remind me of how the baseball was this year.
And granted, Apple didn't do a great job with
it. And we're going to see soon, because due to the fact that they also have MLS starting next year, we'll see how that goes with that.
So I mean, the live sports isn't great for everybody, but again, I think a company like Google might be a little bit better suited to figure some of those things out.
Yeah, so that's one thing. That's for NFL right now, though. Oh, one thing. Unfortunately, during the past 2 weeks, there were unfortunately some well-known players that died. One locally here, then a few. One like the Steelers player with the Immaculate Reception.
Yeah, Franco Harris passed away last week. Of course, most known for the Immaculate Reception, Hall of Fame running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had already had intentions on retiring his jersey. Just so happened that he passed away 2 days before that ceremony. And so they played with a lot of emotion and got a win against the Raiders on Saturday to keep their playoff hopes alive. And Mike Tomlin still has an outside chance at keeping his no-losing season streak alive.
Still a chance, but even though if he loses, he's still keeping his job.
Oh, yeah, he's got one of the most secure jobs in the NFL, I think. But we lost Frank O'Hara, so definitely want to send thoughts and condolences to his family. But here locally, we also lost Demetrius Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that has been in or around football here in the St. Louis area, or honestly just youth sports in general and just community action in general, you know the type of impact that Demetrius Johnson had on the city of St. Louis and the athletes that have come from this city. And so but definitely somebody that was gone, too soon, and it's going to be truly missed in how he's able to not only bridge the gap between what things need to be done to change these communities, but also some of the people who are going to make those changes happen. And really just kind of, another person that was shedding that light and providing some of that goodwill to, young athletes here throughout the city of St. Louis. So definitely want to send our thoughts and condolences to his family as well. So didn't want to get too far into the show without mentioning.
Even our colleague Paul McAlexander tweeted about because he actually visited him during his grade school years.
Yeah, man. So DJ has been around the city, doing great things for years and years, man.
And even in the government too, because I know Kim Garner tweeted about him with being involved with some things with some political, I can't recall what exactly, but he was very involved within the community, both in the community with the citizens and also government too. Though I don't recall him ever holding a government position. But
no government positions at all. But again, definitely somebody that cared a lot about his city and the people in it. So definitely a spirit and energy that's going to be missed here throughout the city of St. Louis, man. So couldn't talk too much football without definitely sending that shout out to him and his family, man. So as far as the NFL is concerned, I think the only other game that I did want to briefly mention, or I guess some outcomes that I wanted to briefly mention, Ravens, of course, we kind of glossed over it, but they got a win 17-9 over the Falcons, clinching a playoff spot.
And that's what eliminated the Falcons.
Yeah, got the Falcons out of there. They clinched a playoff spot, still have a chance at the AFC North, but very worst case will get a wild card spot. Bills 35-13 win in Chicago over the Bears. They are now AFC East champions for the third straight year. Were able to clinch that division title with that win. Chiefs beat the Seahawks 24-10, keeping pace with that Buffalo Bills team for the AFC 1 seed.
I thought Pete Carroll might have been his last year, but he's going to probably stay after this.
Well, I mean, we could see him stay.
We'll see what happened in Black Monday in 2 weeks.
Yeah, because I also think this is a year where you're going to probably get caught off guard, not only with particular coaches being fired, but you could also be caught off guard with just coaches that decide to hang it up.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll's definitely one that I think we should have our eye out on. He's done, obviously, a hell of a coaching job this year, but
he'll probably get in the Hall of Fame, probably. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think so, especially just off of those Legion of Boom years, getting the ring in Seattle. They had another Super Bowl
Belichick, I don't see him retiring quite yet.
I don't know. I don't
that
necessarily see him
reminds me,
retire.
too, speaking of the Patriots, what did you think about that one thing that Mac Jones did?
Hey, man, look, he tried to explain his way out of it. Some guys might just be dirty players. and the thing that I feel like, if you're going to be a dirty player, just embrace it. Say, yeah, I went at him with my foot up. Watch me slide next time. Put some flavor on it.
I would at least put it somebody that's kind of close to the play that they're trying to prevent. But
yeah, but hey, I think the Patriots, they've got bigger problems to worry about because, I mean, you mentioned you don't think Belichick's gonna retire. I don't know that it is set either way. I do know though that Mac Jones might not be the quarterback for them. And I'm not saying it like trying to be overly critical of Mac, but there are a lot of plays that could have been made in that offense this year, with it being as limited as it is, that he has not been able to make. And they also did not do him very many favors with the coaching staff that they've assembled there in New England this year.
Yeah. So now we transfer from the NFL to NCAA. Boy, it's interesting now because we only got 2 more years of this because I'll be glad because now this week is the college semifinal playoffs. Though here's the thing because see, you also got other bowl games too. But look, here's on the day of the two bowl games that I thought was interesting. You got the two semifinals, TCU, Michigan. Tickets as low as $151 at the Verbo. What is Verbo? I have no idea what that. That's what the sponsors for the Fiesta Bowl game.
Oh, VRBO. They are it's kind of like an alternative to Airbnb.
I remember when that was such a Tostitos Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, what happened to Tostitos? They out of the Fiesta Bowl game now? I guess are people not buying tortilla chips no more?
It sounds weird. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl with Ohio State and Georgia, and tickets, the lowest ticket price there is $254.
Yeah, basically a home game.
Yep, that's a home game for Georgia. And see, then you got the previous games. You got Alabama in the Sugar Bowl with Kansas State, $17 in New Orleans.
Well, and I think that's partially due to not having as many stakes at play.
Yeah.
And then also, you got at least you're probably gonna have some guys on both sides sit out trying to save themselves for the draft, things like that. So
and then you got the TransPerfect, dear Lord, TransPerfect Music City Bowl. They're 17. That's the closest to us, as far as I know, in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Nissan.
And that's actually a sneaky good game, and I think it probably won't be a whole lot of point score, but I think Kentucky Iowa would be a pretty.
And
good
also, people were, I know, Jayhawk fans were bitching that Mizzou fans didn't want to go there, but apparently the Music City Bowl guy said no. The Mizzou wanted to do it, but we wanted to choose these two.
Yeah,
Iowa and Kentucky. So,
and I mean, the sponsors are usually the ones that choose those.
And then, of course, here's the thing that's weird: you got ABC for this, but yet both the semifinal games are on ESPN on a Saturday, where you.
Well, so
because I'm used to when the Fiesta Bowl was on ABC.
Well, and I think right now it's more about the TV rights and kind of how they probably marketed that.
I guess, but it's the same company.
Well, same company, but I guess at least from my thoughts as a viewer, the average person that is not necessarily a college football fan.
The Cotton Bowl with USC and Tulane, that's only $5 is the lowest for them.
Damn, okay, can we get down to
Arlington
for a game?
It's in Cowboy Stadium too. That's even more shocking.
Hey, look, I'll go check
that's
USC
probably the
out
lowest
for
ticket you ever get in Cowboy Stadium, to be quite honest.
Oh yeah. So
all right, so let's go over the two playoff games here for ES course. First game, 3:00 ESPN. I expect, due to the fact it's news, I just expect if you don't have ESPN, just go to a bar. They'll be ready and do all sorts, especially with this one being so close to New Year's Eve. Like, just stay there at 2. You don't have to drink. They're pretty sure they'll probably have some bar specials going on.
Look, it'll be plenty of drinks available to you in the room in that one. Now, I think Michigan is probably going to win that. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't shock me if TCU won, but I think Michigan having lost in the college football playoff the way they did last year, I think they got a little bit of redemption on it.
Yeah, though I've told you this a little bit. I think TCU is mad that they lost the Big 12 championship to Kansas State.
Yeah,
and some people are still shocked that they're still in the college playoffs since they lost to Kansas State. But they are probably mad. They want to okay. We want to beat these Wolverines. And another thing, too, with Michigan, because there's been some rumors of Harbaugh going back to the NFL after this season. Let me be clear, rumors.
Yeah, now, from what I've seen, he said that he's focused on being the head coach at Michigan. I think probably not this year. I do see him at some point going back to the NFL.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, as great as he's gotten this Michigan, program, kind of back on the right track and everything, I think there is going to be something within him that kind of pushes him back. Because, again, if we're being honest, Harbaugh wasn't a bad NFL coach.
No, that front office at the time for the Niners was hell.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've seen Trent Baalke's work in other places now since then. It hasn't always been great. So I think that, they'll probably take care of business again. Now, with the TCU kind of redemption angle also, I do think this is going to be the closer of the two games. Usually when you got, and this is not even just with college football, but with any of these sports, you got two kind of big games like this. One of the games is usually a pretty good, close nail biter. The other one is probably over within about a quarter and a half.
Yeah.
I think the nominee for the one to be over quickly is probably going to be Georgia, Ohio State. And again, Ohio State, hell of a team, a lot of talent. That Georgia team is just literally like they are oozing with talent, and they've been running over everybody all year. And like you mentioned, home game in Atlanta, basically.
Yeah, they play in the Georgia Dome at least 2 to 3 times a year now.
And I mean,
they played it for the SEC championship.
Yeah, I don't.
They played
think
it two games straight, that's the weird thing about.
Hey, look, when you're the top team, you do what you want, right?
Yeah.
So, I think Georgia's gonna win that one with ease.
Yeah, and like the thing is, I would prefer that because honestly, I do not want a rematch of the game for the national championship. We did that over a decade ago, and that was just terrible.
Yeah, Ohio State, Michigan for the national championship. I'm out. I'm out.
No, yeah.
I think we'll get Georgia, Michigan again, and I can't pick against Georgia. From everything that we've seen this year, even when they've been down, they've been able to pull it together.
Now, so here's the thing. Let's go by what we think here. Like the ratings for potential final, would it be better with TCU versus Georgia or Michigan versus Georgia?
I think ratings wise, probably Michigan and Georgia, just because of the history of the two programs. Now, I think you might, and again, this is me already putting my prediction for Michigan out on the line there. You might argue that it would be a better game with TCU versus Georgia. Mm-hmm. I just don't think many people are going to initially want to tune in to see that the same way they would Georgia and Michigan.
Yeah, though, let's let devil's advocate here. What if we get somehow an Ohio State TCU matchup?
I think that is the worst possible outcome if you're the college playoff committee. Like, seriously though, like you have your true like blue blood, long-standing team in Ohio State that you can kind of market, but again, most sports you don't want the two quote-unquote underdogs winning both of those games. Again, you could sell the hell out of an Ohio State-Michigan national championship. Probably won't be the best game out of all the combinations that we can come up with here. Mm-hmm. But you can sell the hell out of that marketing-wise.
Yeah, so...
Same thing with Georgia and Michigan. I think the worst case if you are a college football playoff committee member is getting TCU and Ohio State in the national championship.
Like I said, this is basically your plan for New Year's Eve Day, football fans, because stay there. Is the time here basically Eastern or
well, so they're showing this in Central Standard Time.
Okay, so
I've got the same times written down.
So just wanted to double check because that's basically 8 hours you're going to be at a sports bar, or depending, like, I would not be surprised there's a lot of parties. It's like I do know there's some Georgia, Michigan, because each city has a mixture of all sorts of alma maters. There's a lot of Bama people here in St. Louis too. I'm still surprised by that.
Well, yeah, and I think weirdly enough, I guess semi-Midwest, you probably got a lot of Ohio State and Michigan fans here as well.
Also locally here, Illinois faces Mississippi State in the Real Quest Bowl, really, and Tampa Bay. $57. That actually is not bad at ESPN2.
You're paying for Florida at that point.
And then national championship here. Oh, yeah, that's the only type of championship that SoFi is going to see, and that's going to be a college.
Hey, I mean, look, I'm not going to lie though, that's a hell of a year for SoFi. That actually will
be a neutral game because if we do get the Michigan and Georgia, that's Southeast and North.
Yeah, you are getting total opposite ends of the country to travel out there. Now, I will say this is, people in St. Louis probably don't want to hear this, but if you are somebody owning the Rams, you've gotten your money out of SoFi already, hosting the Super Bowl and the college football national championship in the span of a year.
So it looks, you're going to have to make that money, especially since the Taylor Swift concert fiasco with Ticketmaster happened. Right. And that thing was supposed to happen before COVID, and now losing a lot of money out of that. So
Crocky got it.
Now, going back to college here again, because Mizzou had their bowl game with wasn't it the Gasparilla Bowl?
Gasparilla Bowl, yeah.
With Wake Forest. Though, interesting, we'll talk about this soon because National Recruiting Signing Day happened last week. Though I thought it was later, usually it was in the spring, or am I thinking a different signing day?
No, so I've always thought of college football's National Signing Day to be a little bit later, but I think now because of the transfer portal, they moved that up.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of folks that are transferring that can go from one school one semester to a different school the next semester, so that kind of alters your timeline as far as when people can kind of go to spring practice, things like that.
Because see, then Mizzou, of course, lost 27-17 over Wake Forest, and then there, of course, a lot of the things that was complained, especially if you saw Twitter, social media, was when a Mizzou player roughed the passer, but then got the flag, but also helped the quarterback up. But the player, his fellow Mizzou teammate, got mad at him, like not because of picking the quarterback up, but getting the roughing the passer penalty.
Yeah, it was crazy stuff from Mizzou. I mean, to be honest, it's a loss that kind of sums up the season. In terms of just the different struggles that they've had. They've been in a lot of these games. It's been close for them with a lot of their opponents, but for whatever reason, just not able to kind of come out on the winning end on some of these, and definitely same type of thing showed his head in the bowl game, which still a lot to look forward to if you're Mizzou going into next year with some of the guys that you have, but anybody wants to go out on a winning note to end the season.
Yeah, speaking of, let's talk about with the local thing with National Recruiting Day here. So let's just take a look at what are the top 5 out of curiosity for recruiting class for this year in 2023. Alabama, duh.
Yeah.
Georgia, duh. Texas, duh, especially now with the Manning quarterback now.
Yeah, Arch Manning going to be down there next year.
Miami, that is surprising.
So
that might be more tradition more than anything, because I have not been impressed with the program the last few years.
Well, and so what we have to remember as both football fans and people, in sports media right now, Miami, especially now with NIL, the biggest hurdle for a lot of these kids is going to a city or college town that they can also afford. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Miami. There's a lifestyle that you got to live to be able to live comfortably in Miami. But NIL now makes it to where you're not always going to be a broke college student by going to the university.
And then Oklahoma, number 5. That's not surprising.
Yeah.
The Notre Dame still doing it. Though Notre Dame did not get one 5-star recruit. That is actually a shocking.
Well, that it doesn't shock me entirely, because Notre Dame is also one of those schools where you got to have the grades to go there.
Yeah.
So I can imagine why, not saying that athletes are dumb, none of that nonsense, but at the same time, you got to have a special type of academic history to be able to get into a school like Notre Dame.
Yeah, so overall, they have an overall ranking, but there's a composite that's for the signing. Then there's a transfer rank. We'll get that for Missouri here. So, some of the people that I had a little bit, these are now, because during that time, that was mostly, I hate soft verbals, to be quite frank. There's a good example of this. If those seen that HBO show, The Art of Winning, about that one independent high school, they had one guy that verbally committed to LSU, but then LSU, for some reason, did not communicate to his player that they not going to sign close to signing day. And
yeah, it's crazy stuff.
And even the coach of his team was like, "Why are you not talking?" That's also one reason why that coach that got the payout is no longer there. So let's see. We got Brett Norfleet, tight end from Francis House, staying in there. Joshua Manning, Lee Summit back in the KC area. That's what Connor Riller saw him. That's one they flipped from Ole Miss. That was a huge get, especially a 4-star safety at 6'2".
Well, and to also get another St. Louis product like that, similar to Luther Burden, you definitely.
Then you got Gabriel Johnson, quarterback from Tacoma, Washington. Logan Rickard from Raytown. That was a big sign for them, because he's the second best lineman in the state. Jordan House from Pine Bluff, athlete. I hate the athlete title, to be quite. 6'6", 234. Okay, with that, he's either a tight end, defensive end, or outside linebacker. That's the only way that's it.
Well, yeah, unless you try to do some type of super receiver thing with him, which I don't know how that's gonna work.
Then Marquise Johnson, wide receiver, 5'11", from Dixon, Texas. Now, here we go here. Jamal Roberts, running back from St. Mary's, 5'11", had a very good year,
Yeah,
especially with that offensive line of theirs. And also, too, just to let you know, we will have the St. Mary's head coach as a future guest on the show here in January.
Oh yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, especially, and we'll talk about St. Mary's here with a little smidge of a high school segment here in a moment.
Yep.
Jackie Lane, Troy Buchanan, edge rushers. Yep, keep those good talented players here. Los Angeles, Daniel Blood, interesting name. For a wide receiver, I thought maybe a defensive player, but all right. Brandon Solis, Nashville, Tennessee, offensive tackle. Almost 6'8". Yep, we need that. We need an offensive lineman terribly.
Yeah, that offensive line needs some improvement for sure.
Cahokia, Nicholas DeLuch, wide receiver. Yeah, with unfortunately when it comes to transfer portal, Mizzou lost Dominic Lovett to Georgia, of course.
Yeah. That
Tristan
was
Newson, linebacker, Norfolk, New England. Sergey Torankara from Clear Springs, Texas, edge rusher. Yeah, especially with the defense they had this year. They're gone in all. And, yeah, this one's important here. Shamal McNeil, cornerback, 6'3".
Oh yeah, you like having the long corners, and I know at least in Mizzou's history, from what we've seen, they've been able to develop talent on the edge as well.
Yeah,
so.
bring back D-line Zoo.
Yeah.
Phillip Rhodes, Brayshawn Littlejohn. Must be something with Robin Hood with how that last name began. Sam Williams, kicker. Yep, the Blake Craig. They have to get, because the thicker kicker only has one more year.
We got one more year, man. Got to get his
So
replacement
from
ready,
Liberty,
man.
Missouri, that's actually one of the top programs in the state.
Yep.
So honestly, redshirt him, and he's fine for 5 years.
Oh yeah, they'll look, take some lessons from our man, the thicker kicker, before you get up out of here.
Immediate transfers here. Austin Firestone, defensive line from the Northwestern. I did see the guy 6'5", 260,
Okay.
and another wide receiver from Oklahoma, Theo Weiss, 6'2", 201. Well, why did I say that? Now, Illinois is not that far. Oh, actually, let me go back and see. When we go to Missouri here, wait, I think I know where I need to go here, because there's a thing here. If you go to SEC here, Mizzou is actually ranked 11th out of 14.
It's not ideal,
But to be fair,
yeah, look at who you're recruiting against.
Texas
in your
A&M,
conference.
they're 6th, but they were ranked 1 last year, and look what happened to them this year.
Yeah, I don't think we worried too much about Texas A&M. Florida was another one of those that was kind of interesting to me. I feel like they're always kind of in and around the top 10, but I think you would kind of want to see a little bit more from them in terms of return on some of those recruiting classes. And then also, I don't know that we got a chance to mention this in our show prior to last week, because I don't think it was out before last week, but Illinois did give a extension to head coach Brett
Brett
Bielema.
Bielema. Yeah, that happened last week. I believe a 6 or 8 year extension.
Yeah, he got a nice little check there.
Well, yeah,
Nice little check.
Yeah, he's there to stay at I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois is in the Big Ten conversation in a few years, especially if Harbaugh leaves.
Well, I mean, to think about it, they were in the hunt to make it to the Big Ten
with that
championship game this
one
year.
call of kind of a block from a wide receiver.
Not ideal for them.
Yeah. So now, when you look at Illinois, yeah, they're getting the guys from Illinois, definitely in the Chicago area.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we're just going to go through here like Ohio, Florida, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Florida. Yeah, they got one of the Flyers here, Brandon Henderson, one of those big offensive tackles.
Man,
Not the guy
huge.
that went to Alabama, but
I mean, but still, you're looking at 6'4.5", 320. You got
and then
you
got one
college
of his
size, man.
teammates from linebacker, 6'2", 235. And let's see, yeah, from Chesterfield, Alex Bray, edge rusher. I know there was a few other local guys here. Where are they? What transfers did they get? Tight end from Colorado State, not Colorado. Yeah, that's Eastern Carolina there.
Yeah.
And then Louisville. Louisville has not been doing well since they went to the ACC, have they?
Well, I mean, they had a couple good years there with Lamar Jackson. They had a decent start, I believe, to this year before finishing 7-4. So not terrible, but also not the same type of success that they had under like a Charlie Strong with Teddy Bridgewater and those type of guys.
Hold on, I lost the pointer. There
we go.
we are. Get out of there. Now we're going to look at the transfer rankings.
Hey, man, this transfer portal thing, I will say, man, it adds a nice little extra wrinkle to think about with some of these schools, man.
Because top 5 here, Florida State, 7. 4 of them are 5 stars, but how is that now regarded from how they're recruited in high school? Because you don't see because sometimes a 5-star, once they get to the college thing, they could become a 1-star.
Well, yeah, especially guys that go from like 5-star recruits to not getting much playing time. You probably see those quote unquote rankings drop, but we see the prime effect there at the University of Colorado. 13 commits from the transfer portal.
Yeah, they actually got someone from Springfield.
Yeah, Landon Beebe going from Missouri State to Colorado in an immediate transfer.
Punter from Louisville. There's one of the few Jackson State's a safety.
Yeah, you got Travis Hunter, the star athlete as they call him, who plays offense and defense.
There's his son right there.
Yep, he'll be the starting quarterback for Colorado next year.
West Virginia edge rusher, quarterback.
It looks like he's transferring out of Colorado. He's entering the transfer portal.
Yeah, it's like, that's actually a quite interesting statement. That looks like Nevada Wolfpack to me.
Looks like it, yep.
Okay. Oh, these are some people that are, then they're showing people that are going away from after that one speech he had.
Hey, look, he told y'all, man, he showed up with his luggage.
Quarterback went from to Colorado to San Antonio playing with the Roadrunners.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, here got linebacker from Clemson. That guy's now Boise State. This guy went to Southern Illinois. I think it's the Slukey's one.
Yep.
So, this is all interesting, though.
I imagine they probably are not done getting transfers either. So we'll see how that works out. But I think Colorado, they could probably make some noise pretty quick in the Pac-12,
so
man.
Before we get into alternative football news, let's just take care of that little high school thing because that's like the quickest thing.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So people don't know with St. Mary's situation here, they were going to be, I don't know, excommunicated might not be the right word.
No, the school was going to be closing, I guess, because it was no longer going to be receiving the funding it needed from the archdiocese, with it being a Catholic school. So we now know that St. Mary's is going to remain open. Slight name change.
Yeah, St. Mary's Southside Catholic High School.
Yeah. So
starting in July.
We'll undergo the name change, but we'll be able to keep the school open, and of course, from there, be able to keep their, what we now have very reputable football program moving forward as well. So very good news for those students and those athletes being able to remain at their current school.
Though, from what I'm hearing, their basketball program needs work.
I mean, you can't win them all, man. You can't win them all.
I know it's not like how I was in high school. Our football program was good. Strangely, our cheerleading squad went to state, and cross country got state. Through the fall volleyball team actually was decent too at that time. Yeah,
man. It's a lot of moving parts to think about, but very, very rarely do you get to be good at everything. But I think good to see them being able to stay open and again not only continue to keep those kids on the football field, but be able to keep them in their home school. And, who's to say they can't get, the other sports turned around. But, they've shown themselves to be able to be a powerhouse in football. And hoping that can continue for them.
Yes, and another thing that was being discussed over Twitter of a possible game that happened in St. Louis, because there is an East St. Louis Classic that usually it's a team that faces East St. Louis, though this one may need a new venue just in case for a potential matchup between the East St. Louis Flyers and Cardinal Ritter College Prep Academy.
Yeah. So I think if we could bank on a Cardinal Ritter East St. Louis game, once a year or once every couple years, that's look, you're gonna sell out a lot of tickets to that game. Just not even thinking about only the folks here on the St. Louis side of the water, but you got East St. Louis alumni, current students and faculty. Same thing with Cardinal Ritter. That could be a pretty big turnout.
And also, as we lost all the recruiting list there, it's a lot of D1 players are on those squads.
Right, and they are two of the schools that regularly turn out college level and in some cases NFL level talent. So I think that'd be a hell of a series to be able to bank on. Again, if it's once a year, once every couple years, they kind of switch. East St. Louis versus another opponent on some other years while they give Cardinal Ritter a little bit of a break. But definitely a game I want to see.
And someone that is in the area that I hope we have on the show one day, Coach Carl Reed, like he even said this would be one of the top high school games in the nation.
Yeah, like that's a game that you bring ESPN out for.
And that's a game that, honestly, put in the dome, do it like how they do with the Battlehawks right now. Fill that lower bowl.
Yeah.
That would sell. That would do a lot because you would not just get the alma maters of those schools. You would just get football fans in general, especially just like we got to see a high school game in a dome. Let's go.
I mean, and not only a high school game in a dome, but a high school game in a dome that doesn't have to be the state championship.
And then ESPN could just come in like, well, we've done the XFL games here. Why not just do?
It's all easy setup, man. Look, if y'all want to hire us as consultants, Will Freeman, Josh Price, we'll do the job for you.
Yeah.
Just let us put it together.
So now that we took care of the whole high school thing, it's going to be a bit of a while before we talk about high school.
Yeah, man. Long time.
Unless there's something big happening on. Let's start off with, now we're going with alternative football. Now, quick question. Do you want me to do XFL or USFL here?
Well, start with USFL because you sent a pretty interesting note earlier today about this players union that they were able to establish with some help from the Steelworkers union.
From the first season, because every team was in Birmingham, there was a lot of things that were kind of problematic, especially when it comes to hotels, food, and all that stuff. And the players group here that is run with Kenneth Farrell. It's also interesting, Kenneth Farrell was actually playing with the XFL. So that's kind of interesting, too. And they partner with the United States Steelworkers Union. Very good union there. Yeah. Especially. They've been around a while, and they helped it hasn't been signed yet, but they agreed to a tentative deal.
Okay.
So what this has done is the salary has increased like $1,000 a week, but there's a caveat. Because the player said, give us like $1,000 a week with the salary pay, but we'll get rid of the bonus for wins or losses. So they got rid of that. They are getting a stipend for living expenses for $400 a week, though it's kind of interesting because listening to another show that I listened to was the Markcast. He had someone on there that did an article from Sportico about it, because the USFL had a deal in Birmingham with the hotel chains there, and it was like the players had to pay about $75 either a day or a week. I think it's a day. But if you compare it for $400, then $75 a day, you're actually getting less. And plus, depending on where they're at, because see, look, it's not this time around. It's not assigned, so they can do whatever heck. They can just split and live in a cheap Airbnb for all they know. But it just depends on location, because as of right now, they have announced 2 home locations so far. Birmingham, which is going to have the Stallions, of course, the home team, and the New Orleans Breakers. And then the Memphis, they're going to have them and the Houston Gamblers there. The quick question is the other half of the team, because they have not. We heard rumblings. We've discussed this on the show that it might be in Michigan, though, in my humble opinion, if they were able to get it on the East Coast, because that would fit three
Yeah.
of the 4 fan bases. But if that's what they get, that's fine. And let's say if they go and play in the Detroit area, dear Lord, they would
Yeah. I mean, you
$400 a week is not enough.
Yeah, you asking a lot for them to live off $400 a week.
Like Detroit, getting an apartment for how much it would be in Detroit would be kind of almost not exactly, but close to trying to find someplace in New York and L.A.
Right.
That's the problem. So they would have to find something, the league at least, hey, here's these recommendations of these hotels or areas, or they'll probably find something. Then there's also something with food I can't recall right now, but it's a good deal that needs to happen.
For sure.
And like,
For sure.
the one thing that Kenneth Farrell said in an interview that I saw, like, when it comes, because like I do think a union will face with the XFL, but what it looks like, it doesn't seem like it seems it's more of a positive relationship from the get-go with this players group than it is with the USFL, because with the XFL, like, their staying is being provided, their food is being provided.
Right.
So down there in Arlington, and then they're coming out to the games and stuff. So it's kind of interesting. We'll see how the experiment goes. Hopefully nothing bad happens, but we'll talk about something that's a little bit negative with the XFL here a little bit soon. Now, USFL had some signings too as well. A lot of signings from the last 2 weeks here. So first off, we'll go with the Birmingham Stallions. Defending champions, defensive Darian Daniels, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, 2020 NFL Draft, 6'3", 311 pounds, undrafted. Was with the Niners, practice squad for the Falcons, only have 4 games played. TJ Green, safety, 6'3", 215, Clemson, 2016 NFL Draft, with the highest one I've seen with these signings, round 2 pick, 57 with the Colts, been with the Colts, Seahawks, Saints, Panthers, Falcons, Texans practice squad, and recently with the practice squad for the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, and like I said, 2016, so one of the more the older ones.
Yep.
Then another former draft pick, offensive tackle Duran Gray, 6'5", 320 from Maryland, 19 NFL draft, 7th round pick with the Steelers, was with the Steelers, the Jaguars, Titans practice squad, only played in 5 NFL games.
But still been around the league a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting some of that
They
experience.
only had 3 signings. Houston, actually, no. 3 signings, and there's trades. They did trade with the Michigan Panthers for one local player that gets some locals up because he used to play for UAB.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of interesting when he said trade, we trade the players' rights. It's not like, because there's nothing with a draft pick or anything like that,
Right.
so it's kind of interesting. Houston Gamblers signed one guy, Donald Ruffledge Jr., 6'1", 216, NFL Draft 2020, undrafted, played with the Colts, the Cardinals, and recently with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So CFL has been completed. So most USFL has mostly the recent in the CFL.
Right.
So the biggest one is, of course, now moved from Tampa Bay, now the Memphis Showboats. Big Cat Bryant, 6'4". That's actually his name, not a nickname.
Big Cat Bryant.
Yeah, 6'4", 226. UCF Auburn, 2022 NFL Draft, was with the Cowboys recently here this year. Linebacker Nate Hall, 6'2", 235 Northwestern, 2019 NFL Draft, signed with the Cowboys, was with them, the Bills, the Texans, the Panthers, the Chargers, the Cardinals, and recently the Titans this year. Offensive center Brett Hedgie, 6'5", 300 Florida, 2020 NFL Draft, signed with the Colts and was with the Raiders this year. Wide receiver Tarlulu Lamu Jones, interesting hyphen name, 6'4", 220 Eastern Washington NFL Draft 2022, undrafted, was with the Panthers. Defensive tackle Vivian Moala, 6'6", 304, was with Hawaii, then Utah, 2022 NFL Draft. Injury was a problem with this. He actually didn't sign with anything due to an injury he had last year,
okay.
so I can understand why he went to.
Yeah, definitely want to get some good film out there to possibly make it back to the league.
Defensive end Jordan Williams, 6'1", 290. Couldn't find much on this guy. Was undrafted 22, didn't sign with NFL camp. So you're getting some people that even go to camp for the NFL this year. J.J. Wilson, tight end, 6'3", 228, Arizona State / Auburn, 2021 undrafted, didn't sign with anyone in camp. Defensive end Drew Jordan, 6'3", 220, Michigan State/Duke, 2022 NFL draft, undrafted, didn't sign to any other team this summer.
Okay.
Offensive guard Malik Clark, 6'4", 323, Kansas Jayhawks, 2022 NFL draft, undrafted, did have a tryout with the Chiefs, but didn't get signed.
Okay.
So then Michigan Panthers, when they did the trade with the players, they got tight end Kyler Markway from the Birmingham Saints that played from last year.
Okay.
Offensive linebacker Lean Jacobs, 6'2", 246, Wisconsin, makes sense. NFL draft 2018, round 7, pick 230, has been with the Jaguars in 2018, 2021, didn't play at all this last year, and now is with the Panthers, so going to need to get some legs on them because I couldn't find any tryouts or anything with this guy, but we'll see, because there are some players that you haven't heard, they haven't signed, and they do play somewhere else in a year or two.
Right.
So then you got, excuse me, wide receiver Myron Mitchell, 6'1", 180, UAB NFL draft 2021, undrafted, was with the Vikings. Then he was traded to. And this was another player. This was a player that also was traded to the Stallions from the Michigan Panthers as well after 3 days being signed. That was
Stay
really,
long enough to get a cup of coffee, and that's about it, right?
yeah, or not even make camp. Ryan Nelson, offensive tackle, Virginia NFL draft, undrafted, 2022. He actually declared early and didn't even get signed for.
Oh, that's.
There's a few of these guys actually. Defensive end Bryceland Speaks, 6'3", 285, Ole Miss, 2018 NFL Draft, round 2, another round 2 pick, 46, was with the Chiefs, then with the Raiders practice squad, Cowboys practice squad, Giants practice squad, back on the Cowboys practice squad, then the Bills practice squad this year. Then this year, or another recent, offensive tackle Denzel Okafor, 6'4", 322 pounds, Texas, undrafted, signed with the Jaguars. Then there's a re-signed Stevie Scott, one of their top player running backs, so he's back with that with the rushing tag with the Michigan Panthers. Hopefully they do better this year. Philadelphia Stars only have one signing. Correll Whitefall, 6'2", 185, wide receiver, Fresno State, 2022 NFL Draft, undrafted, signed with the Eagles. New Orleans, we already know, local guy here, played for Alabama A&M, Aquil Glass. Was better for him anyway because he probably would get on a roster for the USFL than the XFL. So it's a smart on him.
We thought he was going to be part of that QB group for the XFL. Didn't turn out that way.
Yeah. Defensive end Justin Reed, 6'3", 255, NFL draft 2021, undrafted, was signed to the Titans and played with the Commanders. Then here's someone that people with the Bowhawks would know. New Jersey General signed wide receiver DeMornay Pearson L. Nebraska, then was with the Stallions in the AAF, then was with the Battlehawks that scored a few touchdowns, was our slot receiver, a good player too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Really tough.
And then after that, when the XFL, because of COVID, he was with the Raiders for a bit. Now he signed with the Generals, and we'll see. He's still young, but not that young.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're one of these USFL teams too, man, I think you're hoping that the hunger and desperation kind of wins out with some of these players in terms of them wanting to, whether it be succeed in your league or succeed so that they can get to another league. You want them to kind of, almost play in the equivalent of like a contract year for like an NFL or NBA player.
Yeah, and another thing, we'll see what's going to happen here. Now when we get to the XFL, before we get to a little frustration here, and there's also frustration with the USFL here too, but it's a little bit more of communities interacting with each other.
Yep.
Vipers, the Vegas Vipers, someone that Mike mentioned, we had a few times that mentioned that this was his offense coordinator like months in advance. Dwayne Taylor actually offensive coordinator of Alabama A&M. So Aquil Glass is offensive coordinator that's been getting rewards out there in Alabama. It's now the offensive coordinator for the Vegas Vipers. Hired a defensive line outside linebackers coach of Chuck Benzingham. That was also a former Bengals defensive coordinator.
Okay.
Then they hired their running backs coach Marcus Lewis. Has some pedigree. That is the son of head coach Marvin Lewis.
There we go.
So looks like finally all the coaching staffs are there. Now, since we are talking about the Vegas Vipers, I need to say something here. I'm not worried, but it is concerning. We are about a month and a half from the start of the season on February 18th. And there's a people getting frustrated within the XFL because Vegas have yet to announce their venue. And this, like Mike Mitchell has said on our last week, this has kind of put a little stop of getting like single game tickets because a lot of the teams, especially here in St. Louis, to make sure, because I have season tickets with a few family members and they want to know what the schedule is so they can call off work. And they can't do that.
Yeah.
So, like, we don't know, like, I don't think they're playing Reliance. And there was an article Mike Mitchell did on Christmas that came out that there's a, like, this is, let me go, he said rumored that Mark Davis might have put, like, a little snack of making the XFL in Vegas a little bit rough. Would I put that past him?
Probably.
No. This sounds something like he would do, but, like, once again, rumor. Now, there's one thing I did see if they are doing Cashman Field, their one snag could be because that also holds, besides baseball, but also a soccer team, and they're waiting for their schedule, but we'll see. But this is frustrating. Honestly, because, like, this is still like a black eye, like a failure to me that they should have had this figured out. This, remember, Vegas was Jerry Cardale's of Redbird Capital idea of putting a franchise in there. So, like, they're still going to be, I still believe they're going to have a venue. It just that it shouldn't have taken this long.
Well, it shouldn't have taken this long, and to the point that you were also making there, like, having, or I should say not having a venue in place for Vegas doesn't just affect your Vegas team. It affects the other teams in the league as well. So, you know, I understand, you know, folks running XFL, you know, Danny Garcia, The Rock, some of those other folks in power there. Probably not ideal for them to be in this situation this late into the game as far as getting schedules out, things like that. You want to make sure that you have things like this tightened up. If you're going to go as far as to put a team in Vegas, you got to make sure that you know, kind of cross your T's, dot your I's, and make sure that you got a place to play.
And the Vegas Twitter account did something interesting because they quote tweeted somebody about like the weather within Vegas, and they put home in capital letters in space with a period, and like everyone is like figuring out what's going on here. Like, here we go. Like that's something we'll explain a little bit. That's kind of a troll there. Like, see here, this is a Battlehawks fan that I know, Vince Court, that trying to find your home in this video because they want to know where it is. It's like, even this is a guy that's kind of like like he's trying to figure out if there's some type of code here because he wants to know as well. And like, see, just look at the. It's like, is the say in the background somewhere? No, but seriously, where I can't leave the deposit without knowing where you're playing, so that's a...
Yeah, you got some fans a little upset here.
They're saying... So, like, we're hearing that there is a deal in place. They just haven't announced it. Like, if they do not announce it within the first 2 weeks of January, then there's either to say, okay, we'll have them play in Arlington because they have enough.
Right.
So they need to figure this out because I want to make this clear because I don't want to... Because we're St. Louis. We're like in XFL area here. We are not XFL homers here.
Right.
Because I will call out anything within anything. I'm definitely calling out that other league that's supposedly supposed to have a team here. And honestly, to me, that's a scam league just under a different coat of paint using an old name with the United Football League here. So I'm definitely going to be calling out some of that. So we'll just have to see. We just want to know. We want to plan this because I'm pretty sure a lot of St. Louis fans want to travel to Vegas if there is a Vegas away game. We don't know, like, because I'm not going to go by the former schedule in 2020 because you just can't.
Well, no, you definitely can't.
And here's the thing, too, because a possible with the first home game might actually could conflict or not because that same week is the first home game for the St. Louis City SC soccer team.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you
and that's a Saturday.
Because
there was a game when we faced the Seattle Dragons, like right after, then the Blues game started after that, and there were people that got tickets for the Blues game that a lot of people just walked from the Dome to Enterprise.
Oh yeah.
So
for sure.
So I don't think it would conflict if they do it later in the day or do it the day next. Though, speaking of that with the XFL, there was a deal that one of their chief revenue officer here, Erica Molman, was actually at a thing, I believe it was at the Pro Football Hall of Fame facility, but it was something like that. She actually was talking about that, like, apparently she knows the schedule already, doesn't give us the dates, but saying that there actually will be a few games that actually would be playing on Thursday and Friday. My guess is that's during March Madness.
Probably.
So if one of those are St. Louis, though, that would be interesting and fun.
Hey, look, I love some Thursday night or Friday night, alternative or professional football, man. Look, especially, given the love that this area has for the game of football, man. I think that would be a fun environment to go into, having a home team.
And one thing that she said in future, and I'm not surprised by this because one goal is when they expand is actually put a team in Mexico.
For the XFL?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Not the USFL because the name.
Right. But I could definitely see the XFL, making that move. I think I guess my question would be at what number of teams do you need to be at before you make the move to Mexico real? Because I would think you would want to establish more of a foothold as far as your core teams being with in the States, but I mean you could also argue that 8 teams in the States is enough before looking to Mexico. We'll see.
Yes. Now, one thing that also was announced here, let me get it here. Let me double check here. Yes, a hire too. Let me put this up here. I'll tell you one thing of Bill McCullough as the chief content officer. Let me go back here to see the picture of him here, because he looks like that one singer, like I can't recall, like the one famous like rock singer, like "You Believe, Can't You See."
Oh shit!
You know who I'm talking about, don't you?
I'm blanking on the name now. Damn it, I suck.
Like
But,
you know what?
yeah, it's gonna roll right off my tongue as soon as we wrap up. But
So yeah, and this is actually a very good. And Jane Dutch has been elevated. This was her and Jane Dutch. That's also the former GM of the New York Guardians.
There we go.
Been elevated to chief marketing and team business operates. 11-time Emmy Award winner Bill McCullough as the chief content reporting to the XFL under President Brandon Dutch. So has a very good resume. Let's take a look here. He has works as the NFL as vice president of content development and vice president of content director of marketing for the NFL, where he led market campaigns that helped drive record ratings for the NFL Combine, the draft, the postseason. He also worked across content departments at GoFundMe, GoPro, HBO Sports, and was the creative director and owner of Wonderland Productions. McCullough was featured in an Adweek's Top 100 Creative Feature in 2020 and also recognized for his involvement in producing the NFL films A Lifetime of Sundays, NFL Super Stadiums, Facebook Watches Hala Madrid, and directing HBO Real Sports.
Okay. So definitely been around a number of...
As I said, won Emmys as a producer, director, creative director, editor, and composer. Holds a bachelor's in communication media studies from Susquehanna University.
Hey, I mean, very experienced in terms of driving ratings, and obviously been around a number of different creative projects to be able to put his own spin on how the XFL gets marketed and how some of their content, gets put out to fans. So I think that's, great move for them and getting somebody that also has, as we see, has been around the NFL as well and kind of getting that product marketed also.
And one thing is that the XFL again giving us a little thing to do on the new start of the new year. Especially if those, like I'm not tending to get drunk or anything like that on New Year's Eve. The supplemental draft for the players that did not get drafted in the regular draft here. And here's the draft order. Well. St. Louis got the first pick, and I know exactly what they're going to do with that.
Lineman.
Yep.
Yeah.
San Antonio, Arlington, Seattle, Vegas, Orlando, DC, and Houston. Then it's going to go snake.
Yep.
So second, but then we would have the first, third round. No. I'm sorry. We'll go Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you had it right. So, first pick in all the odd number rounds, and then last pick in all the even number rounds. So I
that's
mean,
good.
definitely, with us holding back some of those picks from the
I
actual
believe
draft.
we have about 12 or 13. There's also 4 players that we drafted that are on practice squad for the XFL here. And also, yesterday was the definite day for finding out those draft picks that, we're signed with the XFL.
Okay.
So that's one thing, too. So that will come to the fruition here, what's going on with the supplemental draft here. Because I believe there's going to be probably over 10 rounds, so we're going to probably have about close to, I'll say, just round of 100 players being drafted here.
Hey, I mean, again, getting some opportunity
each
for guys
team
to
needs
get
to have
football
about
jobs.
66 players, so that's over. I'm going to say somewhere between 450 and 550 players into training camp rosters in Arlington.
Hey, I mean,
Because training camp is not that far; it's about the 2nd or 3rd week of January.
well, and that again is another reason to have that Vegas thing figured out. Like you want to be
Definitely, yes.
You want to have them to have
And
somewhere
then
to feel
another
like
thing I
home,
want to
man.
talk about too is you and I haven't talked about this because we're on Twitter. By the way, I will never get on TikTok. Besides, that thing might get banned in the U.S.
Well, yeah, it might not be around too much longer here in the U.S. if the government
So
has
one
anything to say
thing
about
I
it.
do not like, whether I'm a fan of a property or not, I hate Stan accounts. No matter what, even if they defend something so badly, there was even a Stan account for one of the worst sequel movies of a trilogy of Ocean's 12. When I complain about the whole thing with that whole Julia Roberts deal and
Oh yeah, the fake out of her
that,
supposed to be
and this
Julia
was
Roberts,
this was
but
a
not Julia
comment
Roberts.
because talk about Bernie Mac, and I remember Bernie Mac came on a Tonight Show and talked about Ocean's 12 when he was promoting Ocean's 13, and he actually said that movie was so bad he walked out of his own house.
Man, rough life, man. Rough
Yeah.
life.
So there's these counts that they just like. Some do it for comedy effect, but then sooner or later it's like, okay, you're being really extra, and I'm not just talking about stand accounts for the XFL. I'm talking about both XFL, USFL, because sometimes they interact with each other. Like heck, one did something with a Quill Glass saving Christmas and something like, I get what you're doing, but it seems a little extra that you're trying to do this.
Yeah, trying to force the cause, right?
And it's just stupid. Like, I'm getting sick and tired of that one just saying XFL is a dump, blah, 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 poor league, even though I would, and then going with the whole saying that, the USFL did a good thing with the union stuff. No offense, if they shouldn't have to do that if they did all the right things in the first place in order for to have a union formed.
Yeah. USFL definitely could have done a lot more. On
I'm
the
being
front end.
devil's advocate here. Even though it's positive, you have to understand the reason that's a positive because of this negative.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's like don't be foolish here.
yeah, man, definitely. So we got about 8 minutes left here. Want to jump into some playoff scenarios here, at least for the AFC as we look ahead to Week 17 in the NFL. 2 regular season weeks left. Now, 5 of the 7 playoff spots in the AFC, as we mentioned earlier, are already spoken for. The Bills and Chiefs have already clinched their divisions, the AFC East and AFC West. We know the Ravens and Bengals have both clinched playoff berths, as well as the Chargers. We do not know yet which of the 2 between the Ravens and Bengals are going to win the AFC North, but we know it will be one of them. And we also know that we still need an AFC South champion in that last wild card spot to be spoken for. So
let me get that list you sent me here.
you've got a big matchup on Monday Night Football, which
the final regular season.
and they're going out with a bang, man. Bengals and Bills in a game that's going to mean a lot for the top half of the AFC playoff picture. Bills next week, if they are able to go into Cincinnati and win, they would also be able to clinch home field advantage in the AFC if Kansas City also loses. Now, if not, they'll have to wait it out until the final week if KC is able to beat Denver, which I would think, judging by what we saw a few weeks ago in Denver, Chiefs are going to have a pretty good and easy time holding on for a victory there at Arrowhead against the Broncos on Sunday. Now, for Cincinnati, you have, of course, that Buffalo game here on Monday night, they can clinch the AFC North with a win and a Baltimore loss or tie, or if Cincinnati ties with the Bills for some reason and Baltimore loses, they can clinch the AFC North. Now, thing of note there is that if they happen to lose to Buffalo on Monday and the Ravens win on Sunday night against the Steelers, you are now going to be seeing a Week 18 matchup, Cincinnati versus Baltimore. The winner wins the AFC North. So, something to keep an eye out on there, because I would also imagine if we do get to that scenario, very likely that is going to be the Sunday night game that gets flexed between those two, as opposed to, whatever Sunday night matchup they have playing so far. So, big playoff implications coming out of that Bills and Bengals game. If you had to make a prediction right now, who do you have, Bengals or Bills?
Well, here's the thing. Bills won a division, but yet they I'm looking at the game that they're facing with New England the week after. They don't want them in the playoffs.
Oh, no. So
and also, too, just a reminder, this Monday night game is not only on ESPN, it's also on ABC and also ESPN Plus.
Oh, yeah.
And those who have NFL Plus.
Now, if I had to make a prediction on this, I think the most fun outcome is a close win by the Bills, having already known that KC has won, so you keep that battle for the 1 seed in the AFC for Week 18. And then just set up a winner-take-all matchup in the AFC North for the Bengals and Ravens for a Sunday night for us. I think that's the most fun outcome, especially if Lamar Jackson is back healthy for that final game. So I think that could be a big ratings get for the NFL if they can make it happen.
Yeah, it would.
Now, you also, in speaking of AFC teams, Dolphins and Patriots is essentially a must-win game for both teams. Loser is probably going to be eliminated from playoff contention, whether officially or indirectly.
Oh, God, if they tie.
Well, and so that's the thing. I think, and looking at this list here, Miami can clinch a playoff berth if they tie with New England, and the Jets Jets would have to lose and Pittsburgh would have to lose or tie against the Ravens, or Dolphins win and the Jets loss or tie would get them that 7th seed in the AFC. So, big game for the Dolphins, because if they do lose to New England, not only would New England move to 8-8, Dolphins would drop to 8-8. You got a Jets team going and playing the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday,
And
which is also
a reminder, White Mike is back.
White Mike, my man, White Mike is back. The Jets are back in business because Zach Wilson was not getting it done. To be honest, we didn't get a chance to really hit on this earlier, but Zach Wilson is probably going to be looking for one of these USFL or XFL jobs pretty soon, right?
Like, here's the thing, though. If Josh Rosen can't get into any of those leagues, I don't know about Zach Wilson.
Well, look, man, I just know whatever the situation is, he's probably played his last game in a Jets uniform.
Like, I don't know, would the
Thursday.
Houston Texans be that desperate to get it?
I mean, I wouldn't think so now that they're going to have the number 1 pick. You might get
Depends
a team.
on, because is the USC quarterback, does he still have 1 more year of eligibility?
Yeah, Caleb Williams, he does still have another year.
Because he hasn't said if he's declaring or not.
Well, no, I think he is. He has to play next year, because I think he's a redshirt sophomore, maybe?
Or redshirt freshman.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, he's not. I think he's a true sophomore. Okay. So would need to play out that extra year of eligibility.
So more likely they'll probably be in the Bryce Young sweepstakes.
Yeah. So you probably will have the Texans taking Bryce Young number 1. Outside chances like a C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, maybe. Heard some rumblings about Will Levis.
Then there's also the Wake Forest guy, too.
Well, he's now entering the transfer portal. Sam Hartman, which we didn't get to mention that.
Oh, I did see that.
He's entered the transfer portal, is going to look at being a graduate transfer, which, from what I saw, he's projected to be like a 6th or 7th round quarterback right now, even though he just broke the ACC record for touchdown passes. So my assumption is that he's going to look at graduate transfer for a year to, a bigger school.
It's still weird with that whole graduate transfer thing.
I know, right? Crazy. So He's going to try to find a way to finesse his way into the league next year. But right now, the 3 quarterbacks that are kind of leading the charge as far as future franchise guys are Stroud from Ohio State, Bryce Young from Alabama, and then the quarterback from Kentucky. So we'll see how that all plays out for them. But also, before we go, picked out a nice Tank Bowl game for you for this week.
Oh, boy.
We have the 4-11 Cardinals versus the 5-10 Atlanta Falcons. Quarterback matchup for that one's gonna be
Battle of the Birds, and it's terrible.
Battle of Birds shit at this point. If we be honest, you got Desmond Ridder at quarterback for the Falcons versus probably Trace McSorley for the Cardinals.
And
so
we'll see in a few weeks.
Tank Bowl of all Tank
And
Bowls.
we'll see if in a few weeks Clintonsbury still has a job.
Again, man, I think that Kyler Murray injury might have bought him some time. I don't know. There was some reports that came out, of course, that he and Kyler aren't necessarily on the same page. So that might be, the calm before the storm as far as him losing that job. But I can say as somebody that's watched a couple of episodes of the in-season Hard Knocks, I'm not necessarily the biggest Cliff Kingsbury fan.
Since, I don't know, I'll go with the team that played actually, even though it was a bad game to watch, I'm going to go with the Cardinals with how they dealt with the Buccaneers.
Well, and I think just the way they've been trending, at least the Cardinals have kind of stayed in a couple of these games recently. The Falcons are definitely trending downhill.
Do you think Mariota's done in the league, or?
No, he'll be a backup for some years, I think. If
Colt?
anything, he'll be the backup in Atlanta maybe for another year or so. But couple other quick matchups to mention. You got Cowboys and Titans on Thursday Night Football this week.
Last one, and strangely, they end on a good one.
They end on a good game. Now, also, it is a game that the Titans cannot afford to lose. They cannot drop to 7-9.
And Cowboys need to win it in order to have a chance for the NFC East.
I think the Cowboys are probably going to win that one in a blowout. If the Titans do lose,
Ashley Baker should be happy about that.
well, and if they do lose, watch out for the Jaguars potentially clinching the AFC South because they play the Houston Texans on Sunday. So could be
Texans could play spoiler again.
Hey, look, it would be a great story for them. I mentioned Dolphins and Patriots having big playoff implications. Vikings and Packers in a must-win game for the Packers on Sunday. Vikings can put them out of their misery.
I know Vikings would love that.
Wouldn't it be great for the Vikings to be able to put the end to the Rodgers playoff hopes in Lambeau? So you got that matchup to look forward to, and then also Jets. I
don't think it's going to be
Seahawks.
that cold for how warm it's going to be this weekend.
Well, yeah, you might not get those frigid Lambeau temperatures that you used to. And then last two games I want to mention here real quick before we wrap up. Jets and Seahawks, both teams need wins to stay in the playoff picture there in Seattle. You also have NFC South.
Mitchell, you're gonna be doing a lot of teeth biting.
Yeah, that's gonna be a real close, hard-fought game I think for both teams. And then of course, Panthers versus Buccaneers. Buccaneers can win the NFC South, I believe, if they win that game. If they do not,
then
you have the Carolina Panthers and then potentially also the New Orleans Saints, depending on what happens with them against the Eagles this Sunday, still being in a race for the NFC South Championship.
Yeah. So, and that'll do it for our final episode of 2022.
Hey man, it's been a great year. Hell of a time doing this show here for the first time in 2022. Looking forward to a lot more episodes and a lot more football in the year 2023.
And it's going to get interesting because, beginning of 2023, NFL content is going to go down, but then my expertise in alternative football is going to go up, and then college is going to be gone.
We're going to be on a little bit of an XFL,
a little bit different type
island,
of rhythm that we're going to have. We'll figure that out. That's how it usually goes.
Hey, yeah. So of course, coming back to you with plenty of great guests, plenty of good football talk. Again, episode of That's Football here every Tuesday. Soldier by Blood Studios here on the My City, My Music YouTube TV channel. Our man Tweezy handling everything on our production side of things. One of the best producers in the business. Make sure y'all support us. Make sure y'all support My City, My Music in the Zone Network. Again, sponsored by Cafe Piazza and the World Bird Sanctuary. Until next week, we'll see you then.